Hey, what's going on, guys? Over here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode number 90 today, to review the British Grand Prix with usual host myself and Tom. But Callum is on holiday, so we got our friend Hayden in. He's actually been on a podcast before, like way ago, like 2 seasons ago in 2016. So some of you might recognise him. But welcome, Hayden. And lads, overall, what do we think of what was quite a thrilling home Grand Prix? That.
Absolutely
awesome.
Madness.
Almost got it in sync. I thought I was going to say the same thing.
Close.
Yeah, for a second I was like, oh, did they practice that?
If we had that in sync, it would be hashtag cow out, Hayden in, get rid of him. But no, honestly, incredible race. Definitely one to watch. I mean, if anyone has missed that, what are you doing? That was incredible.
Right up there. One of the races of the season so far. Wish we'd seen, when we all went last year, I wish we'd seen that one instead of what we got, but can't complain. Still an absolutely awesome race. Action all over the field.
So many good overtakes as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It wasn't just like crashes that made it exciting. It was the overtakes. You know, Verstappen on Raikkonen around the outside. And they had the Vettel-Bottas battle. That was incredible as well. So there was obviously just so many different aspects of that race. That was just
and even like Alonso on Magnussen. Good little scraps all over the field. Gasly on Perez at the end. It was awesome. So, really great. But I think we should probably dissect this one in sections.
Yeah, because it's quite action-packed, so we'll just go team by team, keep it nice and organised and rattle through this. So we're going to start off with, obviously, the guys who stole it in the backyard, the hammer blow, as they put it. It's a bit of shade to Mercedes. That was a great title. If you didn't see it, basically, Ferrari do like roundups of the race usually. They give it a little title. For this one, they did hammer blow for the British Grand Prix, obviously, because of Hamilton, hammer time. So that was a little bit of shade. Obviously, very ecstatic to win it in Hamilton's backyard. Sebastian Vettel the win, Raikkonen third. So, well, let's talk about the race winner first. Vettel, pretty great race. No faults, really. Just a all-round fantastic race for him. And he's never really gone that well at Silverstone as a whole. So I'm kind of happy for him. And it was a great composed drive, I felt, that I said in my top 5 moments. I don't know about you two. What do you think about it?
First win in 9 years. Pretty incredible, really. But fair play to him. I think he handled it really well, considering the neck issues. River Bennett said he was really concerned. I think, that's something that doesn't get enough credit. I think, these cars are the heaviest they are in terms of how many Gs they pull. And Silverstone is not a track where they're pulling very little Gs. They're pulling pretty severe, especially Maggis, Beckett, Cops, Stowe. So I think credit to Vettel, who's done a fantastic job. Just missed out in qualifying. The qualifying session itself was epic. That alone, and then the race itself done a good job. Had to get past Bottas at the end. Didn't do a Baku. Stayed composed. Waited for his moment. Struck when he had to, and fair play to him. Took him the fast lap as well. So I think not a grand slam, but pretty much considering the neck issue. So congrats to him. Well done.
I think it was just typical Vettel style, wasn't it? Just leading from the front at the beginning, just getting that gap. Of course, Bottas got back past him because of the safety car. But then obviously Mercedes doing a Ferrari with the pit stop strategy, doing the wrong call, and messing it completely up for Bottas. Sort of, it took a while for Vettel to get past, but he made a fantastic move. One of, there were so many good moves in there, but that dive bomb up the inside, down in towards Luffield. Absolutely incredible. Or is it Brooklands? I always forget those two.
Yeah,
Tom,
I always do the same mistake as well. So
such a good overtake. Just a solid Vettel drive, start to finish, nothing to fault him. And he came out on top.
Even Kimi, though, let's be honest, I thought Kimi had a really good weekend. Qualifying, just missed out again. Really close, top 3 covered by a 10th of a second. And then in the race, did the moves again.
This year for Kimi is very much like Bottas, where you feel like, how has he not got a race win yet? He's done so well. He's got on the podium so many times in the last couple of races. Maybe that little hint of Leclerc coming into Ferrari next year has given him a little bit of a push to sort of get those better performances, but you've got to feel as well, like, how has he not got a race win just yet this season? Because
I think his qualifying's let him down more than once in Q3. He's bottled his crucial lap in Q3 more than once.
That is true. Canada, for example. Yeah.
I think at times just like he's been asleep sometimes. In like lap 1 today, he fell asleep a little bit. His own accord. Fair play to him. He admitted, just locked up. It was my bad. Understeered into Hamilton. So fair play, because other drivers might have been a bit salty over the penalty, but I think even he could see that. he owned it. He had to, but fair play to him, because minus that, it was a very great drive. Like, just like Vettel, composed as well to just wait for it, especially the battle with Verstappen. You never know with Max. Yes, praising Max, but it's still Max Verstappen, so you just never know what could happen with him. And he still, backed out when he needed to with that fight and just waited for his opportunities later on. So overall, I think Ferrari coming away from the British Grand Prix the best they could have hoped for, really. Maybe the 1-2 might have been at some point, perhaps, but Hamilton, that was just him doing a great job to come back into that.
Yeah, definitely.
And overall, the Ferrari car, me and you were talking about this just before, Tom, the Ferrari car itself, away from the drivers, the engineers done some great work over the last couple of races. Updates to Canada, updates this race. And it seems like they've finally got on that equal foot. Even a lot of the pundits were saying that it seems the engines are finally really just about equal now between Ferrari and Merc. And that's great for the rest of the remaining 10 rounds.
There's a lot of
I heard that Ferrari were... Sorry.
That's right, you can go on.
I heard that Ferrari were actually quicker down the straights at this circuit, which just goes to show how much they've improved over where it's been always Mercedes dominance. And now, of course, you've got Ferrari. And that also shows in their junior teams, so to say, as well, with the likes of Haas and Sauber, who are doing such a good job. We'll get to those later. But, yeah, their engine is just so much better this year than it has been in previous years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people... I don't want to be too savage here, but a lot of people have been saying the Ferrari is now just clearly the better car. I wouldn't go that far. You look at Paul Ricard, you look at Austria. There's still signs there that the Mercedes can still walk it on its day. But I think today was very much a case similar to Bahrain, where Ferrari just found some pace. Like, in qualifying, Vettel and Raikkonen front row. In the race, Vettel, a bit dodgy tyre strategy, still really had good pace. So I think it's just one of them races where they just sort of got it all together. Their car has definitely improved. I genuinely feel like now I can say they're on genuine parity now. So there's nothing to split up. The qualifying gap was like, that's what it is. It's just who gets the better lap on the day, or whoever does less mistakes, which is really, really good going into the second half of the season, which is what I tweeted yesterday. I think it's only fair. Go on.
I still think there'll be like those cases, like you mentioned, Paul Ricard. Like, I think there'll be those cases where it really does swing more towards Merc, and there'll be other races where it perhaps, Singapore, let's say, will swing really towards Ferrari. But when you got a track like Silverstone, where generally, I don't know, you've never really, it is a bit of a Merc favourite, but it's always been quite, every car's gone, like, there's no clear favourite at tracks like Silverstone or, like, I don't know, Spain, for example. I think you'll have those middle grounds where we do see these really close gaps, and there might be the ebb and flow. But I think it's going to be very balanced. I
mean, like, look at Austria. Red Bull really popped out of nowhere on a track where you expect Mercedes and Ferrari to be comfortably faster. So I think it's just a case of this season where they're not the team that you'd expect to turn up isn't really turning up at every track as much as you think them to. I think it's only fair, though, I was going to mention before, to address the elephant in the room. There is some debate about, was Kimi's penalty enough, not enough, worth it, not deserved. I'm going to just quickly drop my 2 cents on it. For me, it's a perfectly fine penalty. I think it's spot on, bang in the middle, 10 seconds. Kimi ruined Hamilton's race. And here's the thing. People will spin it however they want. Sure, it ruined Hamilton's race and Kimi kept on going. Kimi still finished behind Hamilton, and it was because of the penalty, because he had to serve the 10-second stop and go whilst doing the pit stop, and then in that time Hamilton got past. So the penalty did its job. Some people are saying he should have been more heavily penalised for it. I don't agree. Also because the safety cars really brought Kimi back into the race, especially the second one, because he was on that 2-stop strategy. So literally the second safety car was like a free pit stop for him. So for me personally, I think the penalty is perfect. And also, devil's advocate, as much as people want to give the FIA crap to keep it not swear, as much as people want to give the FIA crap for not giving out penalties that are harsh enough or for intentional assistance, playing devil's advocate here. Vettel got a 5-second penalty for the same sort of incident Paul Ricard. Kimi got a 10-second today, so where's the consistency in that? So, there's two ways of looking at it. So I think overall, I think it's a fair penalty for Kimi.
Yeah. I think, the 10 seconds fine. And then, of course, if it's more serious, then it's a stop-go. I think 10 seconds is good. 5 seconds is a little bit too lenient, but 10 seconds is definitely a good one. If you ruin someone's race at the start, then, definitely 10 seconds.
I think at the start of the race, 10's definitely feeling quite a big hit. That's quite a big hit at the very start of the Grand Prix. So, Yeah, I mean, consistency-wise, you can argue with that, but that's kind of a weird argument because surely that'd be arguing in a better way for Kimi. So
Exactly.
that's not really an argument. So yeah, I think it was fine. I don't think anything more needs to be said on that. And really, overall, can't really talk much else about Ferrari because they didn't have any faults or any other things to really.
Hats off to them.
Yeah, they actually played that really well.
And Hamilton got the W in Paul Ricard. I was like, Hamilton's going to, it looks ominous for him to pick up the 3 Ws because Paul Ricard was the one where it was unknown. Then Austria, you think of it, Mercedes track, and then obviously this British Grand Prix, be like, definitely you put Hamilton down for a W. So the fact Vettel's actually got 2 over 1 in 3 races, fair play. I think I think it's just a story of the championship. It just, like you said, the ebbs and flows, different winners. So, it's exciting.
Yeah, and we move on to Mercedes then. Hamilton second place, Bottas fourth. So obviously, we already talked about the spin, and so at the start, initially, Hamilton just flying through the field as obviously it's like Formula A v Formula B. That Merc was very, very strong at just plowing through them. Then you got to that really interesting part. The safety cars had come out already, and it was really interesting in terms of just you could see the drive to still push on to maybe even win the race. He was talking to his engineers about, these tires won't make it at the end. There's also a tinge of, I don't know, I want to get your perspectives on it, guys. Like, again, some people are bringing up maybe how Hamilton was slightly irked in the head, a bit too negative on the radio halfway through that Grand Prix before the safety cars had come out. And we had that really Austria. Do we think, I know, Hayden, you were tweeting about it, so I want to get your opinions for sure. Like, in the past, Vettel's been called out for being too hot-headed. But this year, I think it's a nice dynamic that Vettel's now the one that's cooler in the mind. He's never really complained the radio this year. And this year, Hamilton's the one doing it. So I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah. The thing is, I think in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vettel's complaints have been more about other drivers and just sort of that sort of stuff. He's been moaning about other drivers, whereas Hamilton's just always so negative. And I'm a Hamilton fan this season because he's the only British driver in there, and I'm patriotic and I support British drivers. But he's just so negative. It's just like he was making his way through the field and he's just like, I've got damage. And it was sounded like he just wanted to retire the car and just give up. That's what it sounded like to me across the radio. And he's just like, I've got damage. We can't do this, guys, or stuff like that. And it's just like, just get on with it. You're overtaking cars. You can definitely get up into P6, which is above the best of the rest, and then see what you can do. Because at the end of the day, if you're DNF, you're just going to get 0 points. But there is still a chance to minimise the gap that you're going to get to Vettel. Okay, Vettel's probably going to win the race. But this is Formula 1. Anything can happen. Just get on with it.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, when he got up to P10, like, so fast, I was almost thinking back to, like, do you remember the days when, like, in 2012 or 2013 or 2011 or 2010 when you got taken out like that it would basically be race over, that you would be spending the entire race just getting through midfield cars just to get 1 point. Whereas now, because the cars that get taken out lately are so good, like Hamilton or the Ferrari of Vettel back at Paul Ricard, they're so good compared to the midfield that the worst case scenario is, like you said, Hayden, the P7 or P6. Exactly. So even then, that's a great points haul to come back and, think about either a 25-point gap or, you talk about 25 minus the 10. So,
I think this last conversation is a great point. The contrast to last year, Vettel being the hothead this year. Like, for example, we look at China when Verstappen took Vettel out. He brushed it off so coolly, like he did not care.
Yeah, fully.
When like Baku as well, when he messed it up, he was so calm. This year, like Ferrari just looks so in control. And Hamilton's definitely, I mentioned in the last podcast, I thought it was a bit harsh the way he's, was over the radio.
I mean, I would say more kind of they're in bliss. I think in control, they definitely have like a couple of mistakes here and there and like just some sloppy parts of their season so far. Yeah, but definitely. The way they've reacted to it has been like just one of bliss. Like they're like, okay, these things happen. Let's not get out, let's not get too flustered. Just continue on. Just keep overtaking cars if we can. And we'll get the max position possible for that situation. Yeah,
I think it's also credit. I got to credit this race to Mercedes and the strategy on Hamilton's behalf. I think if they pit Hamilton, I don't think we would have finished in second place this race. That's for sure. So in that regard, credit where credit's due from the last race. I think James Vowles, if he did make the call on Lewis's behalf, good call. Yeah. As for Bottas, not so much.
It was a good call for Hamilton. For
Bottas should have pit. I think everyone knew they've sort of messed that up. I think the intention there, they try to pull a Kimi and use him as a buffer to maybe give Hamilton half a chance of getting past Vettel maybe on the restart. But I don't think it worked.
If they did, I would say that's really harsh on Bottas because if he pits with Vettel, I think he would have had a much better chance of trying to maybe attack Seb at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to mention, because obviously, conspiracy theorists on the Twitter web and all that. This whole... I've got an interesting thing I want to bring up, so I tweeted it. Are Mercedes now getting a bit desperate? Now we mentioned before, are Ferrari really on parity with them now, because they started bringing out, after the Paul Ricard incident with Vettel and today Kimi Raikkonen with Hamilton, the desperation of, they're taking us out on purpose to try and sabotage us or whatever.
Ferrari have gained
more points in the constructors in the last few races than Mercedes have, yet they think they intentionally use their cars as weapons to try and take the Mercedes out. That's not how it works. So, in my opinion, is this now just desperation from Mercedes and almost a point of no return of like, wow, we've actually got nothing more to show. We've got a car here that is level playing with ours, and they're not really sure how to deal with it.
I do agree with you a little bit, because it is a bit of games. They're trying obviously to try and see if the FIA can have another look at it and be like, investigate this, have a look. Maybe he could be an extra penalty there to try and boost their points at the same time. Conspiracy, yeah, obviously, but of course it is a good sort of debate, isn't it, about whether it is true or isn't true.
Yes, it's basically just the first. It's like the first signs of. Is it cracking Mercedes?
I think it was just poor on Toto Wolff's behalf, because I think you're mainly referring to when he said, in the words of James Allison, he was talking to Sky.
That one.
And he said, in the words of James Allison, is it deliberate or is it just stupidity? I think it's just kind of Toto Wolff's always had to answer those pressurized questions straight after the race. You think about Spa 2014, and he was speechless then, whereas this time he's talked a bit more. I think it would have been better for him just to be a bit kind of quiet this time. I think he can get his tongue in a twist sometimes, Toto Wolff, that he explains some things. And as of late, Mercedes have done that. They've kind of twisted their tongue a little bit sometimes here and there. I would like to give James Allison the benefit of the doubt, because just like what Arriva Bene said in response, James Allison's worked for Ferrari. So I think James would be very stupid and naive to say something like that when he's worked for that team that he's just talked about for so many years.
As well.
And recently, like you were talking like a year and a half. So, I don't think it's desperation. I don't think it's desperation. I think it's just tongue twisting and just poor wording. I have never seen Mercedes as a team to really put blame like that, because they themselves had to bash away some of their own fans having conspiracies against themselves. Like every time we've had Hamilton v Rosberg. So I feel like they're fed up, or at least their social media accounts are fed up with having to bat away that kind of stuff in the past, that they themselves wouldn't be like that and go on the attack. I think it's just a bit of tongue twisting, unfortunately.
It's interesting,
yeah,
though.
That's how I see it.
It's curious.
It's definitely a very interesting topic, so let us know in the comments below how you see that and the whole kind of Vettel v Hamilton, the hot-headedness, because that's definitely a very unique way of... You rarely see two top drivers switch mentalities like that. It's usually quite a characteristic, like... in their DNA kind of thing, but they definitely have switched roles a little bit this season compared to 2017 and 2016 even. So, moving on to the next team then. Red Bull, I mean, we'll get Verstappen out of the way, I think, because he had the DNF. But before that DNF, that was a brake-by-wire issue, so flat out. Some people were saying, was it a contact? I think it's just brake-by-wire, so we'll nip that in the bud. But like Hayden, I think, said right at the start, what a move he made on Raikkonen. It was a real shame his race ended like that, because that would be the overriding thing, but oh my god. I thought Kimi had done him, and I was like, oh yeah, Kimi's looking very punchy. Yeah, and then he comes out of nowhere and makes an re-overtake like that.
Grip on the outside.
My jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, oh my god.
And then around the outside of Copse as well. Not just that.
Just want to point out that, track guidelines, he did run wide, USA all over again, penalise him.
That was a bit different. That was a little bit different.
Incredible move around the outside. But you got to give it when you go for a move like that. You got to give it to him, surely.
Oh yeah. Fair play.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good moves though. I'm personally, I thought Alonso did a really good move on Magnussen to turn 3, but that was definitely more special just because it was around the outside.
And then Rick Bobby, he had a very quiet race. I actually don't have much to say about him this race.
He was behind Verstappen most of the race.
Since Monaco, he has just been quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah, we mentioned in the last podcast, the Red Bull drivers go in peaks and troughs. So, Looking at the last season, Verstappen came really strong around Mexico. Start of this season, it's been all Ricciardo until Monaco, and now it's like Verstappen again. But now Verstappen's DNF'd, and Ricciardo's actually picked up the points over him. So could it now be a resurgence for Ricciardo into the next few races? Who knows? But
maybe.
It's curious. Red Bull sort of bounce back and forth, but I think they knew the best they could do was 5th and 6th. I think they're pretty closer to the big boys than what they thought. I reckon they weren't that far behind. And
they weren't really there in qualifying, were they?
No, exactly. And they were third. They were third and fourth. They were frustrating Hamilton and Raikkonen, so they could have actually potentially got a podium today. So obviously didn't work out because of the safety cars, but fair play to them. I thought they did
the best job they could because because they definitely were. Also, you could see it clearly by Bottas v Ricciardo at the end. Like the horsepower difference was for some reason a lot more clearer here around Silverstone. Red Bull definitely. I mean, Christian Horner was saying that they were definitely down, and that was an issue for them. So they did the best job they could do. Unfortunate about Verstappen because that would have been another solid points. Because I was really hoping after his win, this could have been him starting to solidify, but it's out of his hands in that case. So that's really that's more unfortunate in my opinion. Moving on to the next team, the other Renault Power team, the Renault Works team. Well, let's get on to the main one, which is Sainz and Grosjean. That was another big incident in this race, and obviously another one at Cops about, into Cops. Verstappen v Kimi. Kimi backed out of that. In this one, Grosjean kept it in, hit a bit of oversteer, and
racing
hit Sainz.
incident for me, that one.
But I was about to say, in my opinion, though, it's just a racing incident.
Hartley, Canada, exact same thing.
Yeah.
Bit of oversteer. It was going to catch it anyway, and pretty.
Look, even a baguette couldn't have saved that catch, all right? That wouldn't have helped it. So definitely. I think if anyone's really being too harsh on Grosjean, which I saw so many people being,
not fair.
It's just it's a racing incident. What can you do? And real shame for Sainz. Mostly because he's in my fantasy team. Don't know about you two.
He was going well though. He qualified 16th in Q1.
You got Grosjean in your fantasy.
I had Magnussen.
I didn't have any money left, right? I had to have Grosjean.
I was going to say, I think Sainz had a really good race. Qualified
he
16th,
was.
And then he was in 9th. So he was running well.
It was annoying, though. I was pissed off on his behalf that he got pissed off at his team. And I was agreeing with him that he should have been told K-Mag was coming out because he got onto hards 2 laps earlier. Hards. Yeah, I was about to say.
Probably didn't push to the max of his
and he didn't push to the max because he didn't know there was a car coming out. But there's that middle portion of the race. I don't know if you guys had the same kind of feeling, but I just got a little bit tingly about seeing 5 cars that close together that were genuinely in a battle. You had Hulk at the very front of the train, and then Sainz at the back.
You had Ocon, Alonso,
in the middle,
Magnussen.
It was great. That was great.
It was awesome. A battle for 7th place, really, really good. And also different constructors as well, not just
all multicolored.
It was a multicolored car, so it's awesome. And I think. For Sainz, unlucky again. 2 weekends in a row. Hopefully, he can bounce back. Because as soon as the Red Bull thing, now looks like Hulkenberg's bounced back a bit, found a bit of form because Hulkenberg out-qualified Sainz.
Yeah, because ever since Baku, it has been Sainz, the Sainz show.
Yeah. So. And now Hulkenberg, Austria was better than him, and especially yesterday in qualifying, he really put on a good show, got Q2. But Hulkenberg, 7th place, back to where they normally race. Had to work for it, running a hard tyre, but he pulled through and. Fair play to him. I thought that was once again Hulkenberg sort of showing again that might have had a few off races, but that's what he can do.
This is a track as well. They didn't think they were going to do that well at.
No.
Renault didn't think they were going to do well here at all. And P6 for Nico Hulkenberg. Really solid result.
Really good. And running the hards as well. The only team to run them. Risk unknown.
True.
So, fair play.
I don't know about you two. Does this piss you off as much as me? The fact that they bring this new tyre and it gets used by one team for the entire weekend.
Who knows?
Well, haven't we got the other tyre that's super hard that hasn't even been used yet?
It's not going to get used at all.
So I'm like, why did they make these?
I don't understand.
It's just silly, and I'm looking forward to next year,
amigo.
When they just go back to 3.
Yeah,
just 3 standard types because it's just easier.
Yeah, super soft.
Much easier.
Soft and hard, done.
Just
3
tyres. And then just vary them from
exactly.
track.
Simple as that.
Moving on to a different colour team. Ocon P7, Sergio Perez P11. So Force India, they had apart from seeing Ocon on that train,
a quiet weekend again.
Again, a quiet weekend, but a solid one for Ocon P7. Really like to see that. And Gasly got Perez, pipped him in the last couple of laps. Bit of a iffy, like, little bargy move, but he got it done, and so that was unfortunate for Perez. And I saw, actually, I don't know about you two, did you see, like, some talks about Perez, like, he might, would he be on the move soon, because maybe he's done all he can at Force India.
I saw this.
And I feel the same way. I feel that. I feel like he's done all he can.
There's always been talk of him going to Ferrari the last couple of years, but of course that's now...
That ship is
long.
long
If
sailed,
it's anyone,
mate.
it's going to be Leclerc, isn't it?
I think that's definitely sailed.
It's just a case of where he could go. I mean, if there's any gaps up and like science moves, then maybe to Renault, but of course it's just speculation. It's just like, where would other drivers? I think...
Yeah, it's like vacation of Renault,
That's
Haas, maybe. Because if Grosjean, they don't want to re-sign Grosjean, maybe.
He will be a potential good option for like a midfield team to sign. So like
I think Haas, honestly, I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, like Magnussen Perez might be a good, partnership.
And also
it just depends whether Haas can keep this.
Williams could always do with someone like him. He brings in good money. Is a better driver than the two they have.
They need that Telmec sponsor, all right? Because
Exactly.
that car is going to be
Important,
barren
mate.
next season.
No Martini is going to be blank, mate.
Yeah,
so
true.
They need something. So that's
it just depends on whether Williams can step up as well. Because would Perez want to go? It's like talks of Ricciardo or Raikkonen going to McLaren. Like, do they want to go to those teams?
It depends.
There's potential they could do better.
If you want to build a team around
such
you,
a huge risk.
then if you want to build a team around you, you've got to sort of take the risk. If
Yeah,
drivers like
true.
that, then. But yeah, Force India, they're getting better, aren't they? They're sort of consistently now edging that top 10. They're sort of getting back to that stage because Renault sort of dropped back a little bit. And I've got to be honest with you, there were signs this weekend, and we'll go on to in a minute, but I thought that midfield battle now is a massive question mark because even Sauber at one point there could have been best of the rest with Leclerc.
Yeah.
He was on. He until he retired, he was racing Hulkenberg for that position.
Well, yeah,
all
Haas
race.
had one
So,
good weekend last race, and they
yeah.
pushed Force India, I think, 2 positions down. So
It's literally just wide open at the minute.
Anyone's game.
can take it. So it's really, really exciting. But I think next up is McLaren, correct?
yeah,
With the
but-
Although, before we go, I just want to mention, because you both have forgotten it, I don't know how, that scary moment for Perez right at the start when he had that crash.
yeah.
Spun in front of the pit lane, has
Jeez.
2 Williams like going straight at him.
Oh,
like,
so close.
Look, I was joking, dog, about the backwards Silverstone challenge, but they wanted to they wanted to recreate that. that
was absolutely mad.
Yeah, on that note, actually, I saw a tweet about that. How did the FI think like, oh yeah, let them go? Yeah, there's definitely, they won't like. Surely the rule should be let them pass the pit lane exit. If there's a crash like that, then let them go. Then
To be
release
fair,
them.
might
I
be
think
too much of a penalty of starting from the pit lane. Like you're actually giving them a time penalty at that point.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's risky, but I think the rule is, isn't it? It's when the first car goes past.
Who
the
was
safety car on
who
the pit
was that
lane
first car on that train? Because he must have shit himself.
I think it was Stroll ahead of Sorokin. I'm gonna
Yeah,
guess.
I
That-
think so.
Dude,
But-
if a car's coming at you like that,
I
so
know,
close,
right?
backwards, you're going to be like, what the flying hell have I just
Well,
witnessed?
you know from experience, don't you?
Exactly, yes. It is scary. It's scary. But moving on to McLaren then, as Tom was moving us on to. Alonso, I know,
Again.
but I'll just let Tom say it because he's pretty much summed it up before.
I tweeted it, didn't I? At the time, again, another race, another 8th place, 2 in a row.
I'm not going to lie, though.
He keeps doing it.
It's fair props. At the same time, though, this is the situation with McLaren. They fired, but they're not fired. Boulier resigned, quotation marks. Zach Brown says he wasn't pushed, and that Boulier just thought it was time. But to be honest now, there's only so many times I can be like, oh, yeah, Alonso's done it again. Fantastic. The guy is doing wonders, taking the car from, like, P16 to 8.
Yeah.
There's only so many times before I'm like, and it might be quite harsh and maybe a bit naive, but I'm just like, and what? Like, I'm quite bored now of it. Like, yeah, cool. He's doing great, but it's just that whole McLaren situation. I'm just done with it. It just needs to.
2 to 10 years, Arif. 2 to 10 years.
Yeah,
Patience, my friend.
that alone. I'm just done with it. I'm just like, for Alonso's sake, I hope he just leaves so I don't have to keep, so you, Tom, don't have to keep saying like, oh, again, he's done brilliant. He's taken a car from P16 to P8. What a drive. It's like, no, but a driver of his caliber should be doing that anyway. So it's just, I'm done with it. I'm done.
If Alonso leaves, though, it'd be interesting to see like whether Van Dorn is doing badly at the moment, because I'm not one for like, judging drivers and trying to like put hate on them, but it's just this year is not being great. And I saw someone tweeted me that said the car was set up more for Alonso than Van Dorn, which I suppose could be because obviously he's your number one driver, he's your main man. But is Van Dorn just not great anymore?
He is definitely struggling. I think McLaren have always had a kind of thing of an issue of having a car that suits both drivers. I think Jensen v Lewis was a really good argument of a lot of the time. Apart from 2011, that was only the 1 year where Jensen kept getting his setups in the right window. And I think Van Dorn might be a lot like Van Dorn, where Van Dorn's a lot like Jensen, where he needs to get the car in the right zone where he wants it, and he can just never find that, maybe due to the car leaning towards Alonso. But at the same time, I also do want to say I think he's losing a little bit of touch of maybe what made him so good in GP2, because it's been so many years maybe since he's really had a great drive. So
that's what I said. Alonso... You can measure it however you want, whatever reason you want to give. What the telling argument for me is, personally, and I've watched Alonso for a long, long time, Alonso is not a good qualifier, yet he has a 9 or 10-0 record against him this season.
It's 11-0. It's 10-0, yeah, it's 10-0.
And he beat him last season as well, easily. So,
so it's 11-0.
That, for me, is very telling alone. Not forget the race performances, just the qualifying, because Alonso has never been a good qualifier. He's been all right, but nothing spectacular. That, for me, tells a lot. So... I'm not sure where.
I think honestly, do you guys think Van Dorn's on thin ice for next season?
Yes.
I think 100%. Norris is nipping on his heels.
I think he is. If Norris keeps on bagging the results, he could be.
We had a conversation, me and you, have a couple of weeks back, and it was like GP2 drivers, when they win the championship, I feel like when they have that gap and they go into another formula, they just lose that momentum. I think it was with Niran as well, and they sort of just lose that momentum.
Yeah,
like
classic
Gasly, for example.
Like Giovinazzi, his career is pretty much shot.
Palmer as well, even though Palmer wasn't exactly a great driver and he won the championship, not as significantly as Van Dorn and Leclerc, but Leclerc's gone straight into it. Look what he's doing at the moment. He's doing absolute bits for Sauber. Van Dorn had that year out. Yeah. And he's just... Was it a year or 2 years?
It was a year, but the difference was, like, compared to someone like Gasly. Gasly went and contended in Super Formula in Japan.
Yeah. But so did Van Dorn, didn't he? I swear Van Dorn did the same.
I mean, you could argue...
No, Van Dorn was just the test driver for McLaren for a whole year. He just sat out.
You could argue with Van Dorn, like, his best moment was his first race in 2016 when he sat in for Alonso, because he was fresh off at the hills in GP, and he got that points finish with
I think you were correct, Hayden. He sat out for 2 years. For 1 year, he did Super Formula. The first year, he sat out. And then the second year, he just literally sat out completely.
When did he win it?
He won it in 2014. So I think 2015. Yeah, I think so.
No, it was
2015?
2015, yes. Yeah,
so he just didn't contest it. Because I'm pretty sure when Jensen was in the team still, he was literally doing nothing but being a test driver. So,
see, that's obviously what's killed him. You have a year out, it's just, just lose that momentum. I think that is a big struggle for him.
Even if he did have that year in Super Formula, clearly didn't do him well, because unlike Gasly did him well, clearly, because he's now come in and he's feeling more comfortable than Van Dorn ever has, really. And I kept, flashback a year ago, I was being kind of very kind to him. I was kind of saying to Tom and Cal, just give him time. But now it's been time. And I mean, Norris... Yeah, he's not leading the championship anymore. George Russell's doing a fantastic job in F2 now. He's got a real good string of results, 3 poles in a row.
Potentially.
George Russell's definitely a hot topic for Force India, maybe. Or basically just in Mercedes plans indefinitely for the future.
Or Williams if they become a Mercedes B team.
Yeah, because 3 poles in a row. He's leading the championship now when it really didn't look like anyone could after Norris started so consistently.
Yeah.
But Norris has only won 1 race, and George has won 3 now in F2, if you include sprints and the features. So, but Norris is still doing a fabulous job. To say he went from F3, FIF3, which is not the same as GP3. He went from that very weird championship, coming into the kind of F1 feeder series, doing a great job. And yeah, you got to say, add on Van Dorn. Announce Norris anytime soon, really.
But there's not been a race other than Bahrain 2016 when you say Norris. That race really blew me away.
There's a few at the end of last season, like Malaysia and stuff like that. I keep getting reminded of when I actually slag them off on Twitter. But I get reminded of I think Malaysia and Singapore, sort of around that, or Japan. I think it was something like that around that sort of end of the season But at the end of the day, 3 races.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
it's not
enough.
Thing
is, as much as Alonso's consistency and the results he gets is also his biggest sort of, not flaw, but it undermines it because, like you said, Arav, he just does it so often now that it's just getting to a point where he just keeps doing it. And it's
that's what I'm saying.
We still can't underestimate what an achievement it is.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's tough for me because I fully hear what when you said that sentence. I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, he is doing a fabulous job. There's only so many times where I can hear that and actually care about it. At this point, obviously, if you're a Alonso fan, you care about it every time. And if Jensen was doing the same sort of thing, I would care. But because I'm not like actually a Alonso fan, it's more of a case of I respect him. At the same time, I'm just getting bored of, okay, cool. Like, when's this going to change? Like, you can do something else now? I feel like this just lost potential. Like, for his sake, for his career, just go do something else, lad. Go win elsewhere. Like, because... Yeah, I mean...
he should not be in a midfield team. It's just
he should not be dragging a car.
Should not be there.
Him leaving Ferrari was the biggest mistake he's ever made. Because Ferrari is a team that will always be there. I think I said it in the last podcast. They will always be there. They always have money to put in. They'll always give you a great treatment. Like, they will treat you as a superstar. And especially after this race, when you look at how Ferrari is compared to Mercedes, you think to yourself, what if Alonso really had that car?
Yeah, and car performance-wise, Ferrari might have off years where they go down to like the third or some race weekends fourth best team.
It's not McLaren though.
But yeah, they don't drop off.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like McLaren's they're focused on too many things. They've got their mindset on so many different things. Just focus on your car. Like try and make them better.
Yeah. I mean, there was that sentence that after Boullier resigned, there was that sentence of, the McLaren car actually has less downforce than last year. I'm like, how is this possible, lads?
Yeah.
Like, how is this? All you've done is put a Renault engine in the back of the thing. I know that you have to do some reconfiguration for the engine cover and stuff like that, but how? How is it? If that's actually true, how have you done that?
It's just mad.
Just ask Williams.
Yeah, yeah, true. We'll get to them later. Haas. Well, we talked about Grosjean. Magnussen, solid job from what he had. I mean, the Haas had a very bad lap one. Both of them got in kind of bit of a, how do you say it, like a avoiding cars situation.
Yeah.
So Magnussen, I think, did well to get back to P9. Not really much else to say about them. I think
they qualified best of the rest, so they're still
they qualified very well. And like we said last podcast, I think we thought they would do that. So going to what the next race is, German Grand Prix. I think they could go well there, and I think they could continue to maybe chip away at Renault, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Be an interesting battle to sort of see them and Renault, really, won't it? Sort of see those two teams
that's going to be the real battle.
Together.
Yeah. And the next team, Toro Rosso, well, Hartley, he had major issues all weekend.
Unlucky, man. Unlucky.
Really
He's so
bad.
Unlucky. He's
really
been such an unlucky driver. And
Good news
I feel
for
like
him.
Red Bull being Red Bull is just like, it could be time up. Although, like,
No,
I think you're going to say good news is like there's no one coming up.
No. There's good news. The rumor going around the weekend was that they decided that they're going to give him until the end of the season because they're looking to line up Dan Ticktum as next season's replacement, who's actually a proper Red Bull sort of young driver coming through.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense and also takes the pressure off a bit. So that's what I've heard. Apparently, Hartley's had guarantees of. They're not guaranteeing that Ticktum's going to come in, but he's got the seat until the end of the year. Yeah, apparently. Yeah. So
is he in GP3, right?
Yeah, F3.
Yeah.
F3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, different thing. Yeah.
Like,
but
GP3 and F3 is not
unfortunate for him. Gasly, quiet weekend, but really fantastic job at the end there. Gets P10 in a race where it's been a couple of races where Toro Rosso have had good news. So good on him for kind of keeping morale up with that 1 point there for Honda and Toro Rosso. It was a very tough weekend for them. Gasly saying they were low on power the entire time.
Doesn't bode well for Red Bull next year, does it?
Maybe, but I mean, this is the first time they've said it this season, really. Yeah. I think that's the first time I've seen them criticise Honda. So I think it's not too much to worry about.
Yeah.
Force India, McLaren have gone through, Perez, Van Dorn, P11, P12, and the final guys then, I mean, Sauber were also there. They DNF'd. Ericsson just crashed in turn one. I don't know. It seemed like a reattachment issue in terms of the aero reattaching to the car when he closed DRS before turn one.
Credit to him. I mean, he went well again this weekend. Got another Q2.
Yeah.
2 races in a
Leclerc,
row. What a guy.
Oh, what a shame. What a shame. He was P7. He was running so well.
That's what I said. He could have actually finished best of the rest in 6th. He genuinely
such a shame.
Like, you have to start considering
Sauber for me are definitely the team of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love him.
Just been
Sauber Alfa
absolute,
Romeo this year.
They started off, to be fair to them, they started off down at the bottom, like one of the last teams down there with Williams, and they've just been improving as the season's gone on. And like you said earlier, they had a point where they were nearly best of the rest at some point. It's just like, how? How has this happened?
Fair play.
Really good feel team. Unfortunate for Leclerc. He'll bounce back though. He'll learn from that. That's a good learning experience for him because you're going to have off days like that.
He took it really well in interviews.
If he's in a Ferrari, he might have an off day like that where the car just fails him. He's going to have to learn to just take it in his stride and buck up next race. So good learning experience for him actually. And then Williams, well, his last point of the podcast what to say, really. They changed their rear wing into the race because they found it was so bad in qualifying because they couldn't use DRS because the reattachment of their aero was so bad when they closed DRS that they were like, oh, we can't use DRS on the flat-out lap of the weekend.
Well,
Right.
to explain a bit more detail, the DRS zone on the main straight, when they close it into turn 1, they would basically have no downfalls, therefore miss the corner.
And then into
That's the main
Stowe,
one.
yeah, and then into Stowe, when they did close the flap in time, even early, Sorokin literally said, even when it reattached and the airflow was still working fine, it still wasn't enough downforce to take Stowe's one they wanted.
In qualifying into Luffield into Luffield.
That's just a bad car.
No, Brooklyn's. I don't know. I give up.
Right, let's
You know what I
let's
mean.
not be too harsh on them, okay? They made an overtake on the safety car, so I think we can all give a round of applause for
Yeah,
that. They got
yeah.
an
Two
overtake
overtakes.
this weekend.
One each car.
Brilliant.
2 overtakes, not 1.
I have
There
nothing,
we go.
I
Well
have
done,
no-
Williams.
I have nothing to say on Williams. I don't know if you two have any more to say on them.
No, I do have something else to say, but not Williams.
Ridiculous for Williams.
All right, well, we'll come on to the last part of the podcast. So, Tom, what?
I want
what's,
to just give a quick shout out. Balls of steel in that closing laps. Like I've mentioned it off the podcast, but that sort of image we got, the 4 cars, the 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferrari, sort of running at max engine power, just pushing to the limit.
Yeah.
Really awesome. And also shout out Vettel, because I don't know if you noticed, but he was running DRS open through 1 and 2, I think, towards the end. I know he definitely was through 2. He might have closed it briefly through 1, but he was like really going for it. He could have easily done an Ericsson, but he was actually keeping the DRS. You can see on the steering wheel, the lights,
Yeah.
where the lights
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Whereas Raikkonen was closing it, he didn't have that same sort of confidence. So that shows how much they were really pushing to the limit to really gain those extra tenths. So it was awesome. Literally, the race felt like it was on the limit every single lap. It was so cool.
It was good. Well, we're going to round it out then with the Patreon questions then. So we've got one from VR,
Parrick?
Tom.
Parrick?
VR Parrick.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, so this was about Bottas. We kind of already discussed it, really. A lot of the questions sometimes overlap with what we already talked about, unless we preempt what you guys are going to ask in a way. But yeah, Parrick, why not pit Bottas after the safety car? Could that seal 3rd place? I think definitely Merc are going to have to. Like, if they're very ignorant, they don't realise that they are making a lot of strategic errors lately.
Yeah, definitely. That was one where Hamilton could have got away with it because he came in so late for the mediums, so he still had good tyres left. But Bottas they had to bring him in there. You know, that was so basic. Personally, I would argue that was just as bad as the one last race at Austria.
Yeah, I would agree.
If not worse, because this was a full safety car, and he really, it was not ideal at all. So, especially because Austria's not as heavy on tyres, like Silverstone's going to murder your front tyres. So, it's not one where you can sort of leave them out there and hope the tyres work. So,
I feel like it was bad for Bottas, bad strategy call for Bottas. But I don't know, because it got them 2nd and 4th. I don't know whether Bottas would have had a chance to get past Vettel. That's the only
but it
thing.
could have been 2nd for Bottas and 3rd for Hamilton instead of 2nd and 4th. It could have been 2nd and 3rd.
True.
Yeah, basically would have been an injection to Bottas. So I think they're going to need to think about it. And Lewis VDK has also asked, do strategists need a reshuffle? Like, going those basically the same questions. Yeah, I think they're going to have to look at it. Hope for their sake, I hope they look at it because they can't keep doing that.
Lewis said, should the pit straight DRS be shortened or just completely removed? I don't think so. I think it's quite good. I think it sort of gave another element. Like I mentioned, Vettel used it towards the end to try and reeling Bottas. So,
it
Grosjean
separates
went off.
the men from the boys, so to say.
No, but it literally does, because it's that sort of, do you risk it or do you not?
I would agree, but also at the same time, I also think for the top cars, it's not actually much of a big deal for them. Like, Verstappen did it straight away on FP1, but for the lower cars, it's actually a safety issue in terms of they don't actually physically have the amount of downforce to pull that off. And
I'd keep it. I think it's interesting.
I would keep it's interesting, but also at the same time, I tend to actually disagree. I don't think it's much. It's impressive. It's not as impressive as I think you're maybe putting it out to be.
Not as it sounds, no.
It's
a
he
challenge.
opened.
I enjoy the challenge.
It's a challenge of you change your racing line, but I don't think it's a big balls kind of thing because the Ferrari has downforce. I think it's just Kimi being like, oh, I'm just not going to open it because also Verstappen and Horner argued. In many ways, it unsettles the car a bit because actually aerodynamically, if you think about it, just being a bit nerdy, it will unsettle the car a little bit. And we saw back in 2011 when they had it as well through turn 1, and Webber on his pole lap had it open flat out, and it unsettled his car. Yeah. In these cars, where they're even more dependent on that, one could argue actually having DRS open there, depending on the situation, of course, could actually be a bad thing for the lap time. So it's half and half in terms of that. But I wasn't fussed about it. I think it worked fine. Sure.
I'd keep it. It helps the cars stay closer anyway, so it's not a bad thing.
I mean, on the pit straight, but I mean, they could just end it at turn 1, though. So, I mean, out of the last corner. But we got Ferox here with a question, was Grosjean to blame? I think we already answered that.
Racing incident.
I think all three of us thought racing incident, yeah?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
We've got Burak here with how about the interesting tactics that Lewis mentioned? What do you guys think? So that was obviously the whole... we mentioned Toto Wolff saying it, but Lewis also said it in the press conference. Actually, quite a funny meme picture of as soon as Hamilton started to talk about it, Vettel put his head down, his hand up to his face.
It's not on, personally. It never makes sense when they bring up these things. Why would you sacrifice your cars to lose a constructors?
Kimi isn't one of those anyway to do that.
Exactly.
Kimi Raikkonen isn't someone to take someone out on purpose. He's probably one of the cleanest drivers on the grid, Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, I think his personality is just not that kind of like.
Yeah.
He even said I'll accept the penalty because I made the mistake. It's fair enough, so I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's silly for that to be brought up, just like Toto Wolff brought it up. So. I think
you could see the lockup. Like, if he was going to take him out, just keep full throttle.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're going to do the job, do it right.
I think that does sort of point towards, if Lewis did say that, and you're guessing there's no communication between Toto and James Allison, more than one person thinks that within the team. So is that genuinely something they are thinking, maybe?
Yeah,
Who knows? So it definitely adds to that argument.
Yeah. Well, we got Visual with a nice question, actually. Is Ocon good enough to be in a better car? 8-2 in quali, overtook Perez in the World Drives Championship, even with the podium for Baku.
That's what we said.
I think Ocon is plugging away, and I think there's a scenario in the future where he gets a Mercedes seat.
Bottas is doing too good of a job at the minute.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Ocon's had some bad luck this season. That's why he's only obviously just overtaken Perez, and he's definitely the better driver in that team as well. But it's just a case of, I think it's the same as Sainz. Not really a place for him to go at the moment.
If Bottas was having a stinker, you could already say, because he's only got 1 year deal, you could see Ocon moving up. But Bottas, to his credit, is having a fantastic season. He's just been very unlucky. So nowhere to go at the minute, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then finally, Ferox, do you think Red Bull should focus on 2019 since they're not really in the championship hunt? I mean, I think part of me would think they're such the top teams, they can easily split their team in two and already do that anyway. So
it makes sense because, they're not going to win anything this year. However, it's pretty much proven they do already have the best chassis. So there's not really much to... I know obviously it's development and racing, you get left behind, but there's not really much. It's not like they're catching up. They're already the best in the chassis department, you could argue. So it's more than just adapt to Honda.
Yeah.
So they could potentially actually, if anything, in my opinion, delay next year's car and still focus on working on this one.
It's a tough one. It's like yes or no because they're not really in contention at the moment. They've had 2 wins already, but it's like halfway through the season, or not even halfway through the season.
3 wins
so
actually.
Still 3 wins. Sorry. It's only halfway through the season, so there's still such a long way left to go that Red Bull could switch it. The likelihood of that happening is probably not, but
like
you never know. I mean, those Red Bull fans could be.
There's still some tracks there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think it's. I think this year, especially, I think Hungary, they could be a real threat. Singapore as well. So that's already a possible another 2 wins, so that could be 5 for them this season. So on the face of it, it's not a bad year. Just say it as it stands, team by team, it's 4-3-3 in Ferrari's favour. So I don't know. I think it's way too early.
Sometimes focusing on next year's car doesn't work. Like when Sauber in 2008 were winning the championship, then they decided to focus on the 2009 car, and look where they are now.
Yeah, true.
So.
True. Yeah.
Or just McLaren's constant refocus on next year's car.
Exactly.
Well,
so,
very true. So that's going to round out podcast number 90 then, guys. So if you're new around here, do get subscribed to this channel for the podcast. Check out these 2 Twitter handles on screen the entire time. Obviously, we just went through a lot of Patreon questions. If you do like what we're doing around here, you can support us directly on Patreon. We really appreciate it. Even just $1 goes a long, long way, trust me. So do have a look at that, link in the description. And you can catch us on audio, but you would have seen that on screen, on SoundCloud and iTunes. Links also in the description for that. But I hope you guys did enjoy the the review of the British Grand Prix. And finally, if you do want to get yourself a racing chair, you can check out GT Omega and use the code PitlaneF1 for a discount. But we'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Goodbye.